My name is Conor Norton. I'm chairing the session today, the session on data and digital technologies that improve housing delivery through the Irish planning system, and it's part of the digital housing series that has been prepared as a collaboration between CETA and Enterprise Ireland, all under the aegis of the digital aspects of the delivery of housing for all. So a very warm welcome to all our attendees today, and indeed to the speakers. And a warm thank you also, and a welcome to our sponsors. Today's program is, we've got three speakers for you today. We've got Eileen Dennan from the Local Government Management Agency. She is going to talk about the online planning project more generally, its background, the objectives to that, how the site works and what sort of future plans there are. Then we'll be followed then by Teresa Kiely, who's the project lead in Tipperary County Council for the project there. We'll look at the case study for Tipperary, particularly the rollout of the planning portal there. And finally, we'll have Sean Ryan, and Sean is the Director of Ryan Architectural Solutions. And I suppose that will be a user's perspective on the portal and the case example. So we'll be getting the agent's viewpoint then to finish off. The program today then looks a little bit like this. I'll be wrapping up now in a moment and handing over to Eileen, but we will be moving through presentations. We'll do all the presentations, there'll be 15 minutes each. And then keeping to time, we will have a chance for Q&A for about 10 minutes, and then we're aiming to close promptly at 2 o'clock. So for any questions, of course, you'll see the question function down at the bottom, and you can see Q&A. So please put questions into the Q&A area there, and we will try to moderate those questions as we go. Okay, so without any further ado, I'd like to hand you over to Eileen Dennan, who's the project manager of the Local Government Management Agency, and she's going to provide you with an update.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the session today. So I'll just share my screen now, 2 seconds, I'll get it open. So I have a little presentation here. Sure. Okay, can you see that there okay? So I'll just start at the start.
That's fine, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, so from the beginning. Okay, so I'm the project manager. I work for the LGMA now. I was with local authorities all my working life, Dublin City Council, South Dublin, and the old Dublin County Council, and I project managed IT projects there. Just what we're going to be talking about today, looking at the various different elements of the solution from the front end to the CRM, looking at submissions, talking about the pilot, and then the rollout, and we'll take some questions then. So, introduction, the background. So it's long been an objective of government to deliver online planning. The current system of paper-based applications and 6 copies and so on, I think everybody agrees, is totally antiquated, and it's seen as an impediment to, the delivery of efficient planning services that is still a paper-based system. So to deliver online planning has been on the agenda now for quite some time. And it's also an objective of the construction sector group. So it's one of the 7 actions. We're action 6, which is digitising the planning application process. So that's a large project involving many players with multiple strands. So when the project board was set up for this project, the considerations were that it should be a simple and a practical approach, and that there are already planning systems in use in all local authorities, and the portal was not going to replace these, it was going to fit in with them, and that it would take a consistent approach, and it would not seek to change local practice or procedures unless it was essential to do so. So that were the considerations in the initial. And then the scope was planning applications, so the Part 4 planning application, the Part 8 applications, submissions, some people would call them objections, or some people call them observations, standardising the naming of all the documentation throughout the local authorities, and then with An Bord Pleanála, paying of fees online, making referrals to prescribed bodies electronically, and then finally transferring the file electronically to An Bord Pleanála for an appeal. So it's quite a complex project because you have a number of different planning systems. So 2 local authorities use Odyssey, they're the Cork local authorities. 5 use APAS, so they're the Dublins and Wexford. And then the remainder use iPlan, so that's provided by the LGMA. And then there's different document management systems, so 20 use iDocs, and then there's 11 other local authorities using different other document management systems. So there's that complexity, and then the planning process itself is quite complex, as you'd be aware. So the governance, we were lucky enough to get the capital costs provided by the Department of Housing, and then the support costs, the annual support costs are they're being paid by the local authorities. So they pay according to the size of the local authority. And we have a project board that consists of directors of service of local authorities, on board Pleanála, and the department. So the team is relatively small. It comprises of ourselves here in the LGMA. We have Teresa as the project lead in TIP, and there's 2 vendors. We have Anertech, who look after the front end, and Provident, who look after the CRM and the integration. So then looking at the front end. So this diagram here kind of shows how it all hangs together. So we have the front end, we have the CRM, we have an integrator that runs with 2-way integration. Oh God, hang on, how did I get that back? So 2-way integration for iPlan, and it's actually 1-way integration for APAS and Odyssey. So I'll explain a bit more about that now as we go along. So to use the portal, you have to register. So that's the first step. And once you've registered, then you can go and make a planning application. So creating an application, you literally select the local authority. At the moment, it's only Tipperary and Galway, and there'll be more added as we go along. And then you literally go along using these tabs here. So it's divided into place, proposal, people. They're the main categories. So it is the old application form, but it's just been redesigned to be more user-friendly. So as the fields are completed, you know, certain ones are mandatory, certain ones are not. As you complete one field, another may appear depending on the answer you've given. And the detail that is provided when you register initially is used to populate certain fields. So it's all designed to make it as easy as possible to complete. So you've got proposal, and then you have people. So the people relating to the application, an agent registers on behalf of an applicant and completes an application on their behalf. So the correspondence is with the agent in all cases. And then the next thing they do is they upload supporting documents. So depending on the answers that have been given to the various questions, it will define which documents are mandatory. So if you have said it's an EIAR application, then you'll be required to upload the EIAR document, and so on. And as you upload the documents, you are required to categorize them using the standard categorizations that have been set up with ourselves and on board Pleanála. So they've been decided upon. There's multiple categories. It's very clear which are going to be published online. They're defined as public, and others are confidential. They won't be uploaded online. We only accept PDFs, and there's a max size upload per file of 20 megabytes. So as soon as everything has been completed, you go and you submit. It then will tell you if there's any information missing or any documentation missing. But assuming all is well, you then proceed to pay for the application. Goes directly into the local authority's bank account, and it can be refunded then back to the credit card if there is need to do so. You get a receipt to say your application has been accepted. It has a transaction number that can be used if there's any question afterwards. And then afterwards, then on your dashboard, you can see the application has been submitted. Previous to that, it could have been changed. It would be at a draft status, but at this point, it's gone to submitted. So all you can do then is view it, or you can clone it, which creates a copy very quickly. If you view it, you can download the documents. So all the information that has been input is used to populate particular documents. So your application form A, applicant contact details, and all the documents that were uploaded. And as the forms are uploaded, they're water stamped with the date received, and the information that was input is used to generate the application form. And the application form itself that is generated is in the standard format of the old, questions 1 to 26. So then to clone the application is literally a case of clicking a couple of buttons, and it's very handy. If an application was invalidated for any reason, it could be cloned very easily. So it's been used already to some effect. So then looking at what's behind all this, okay, so the Sugar CRM is like a giant database behind the front end. So it contains all the applications for all the local authorities. And then each individual local authority, you know, it pulls down the applications for that local authority. So this is the front end of the CRM. The local authority will see this, nobody on the outside will. And when an application is received, an email is sent to the local authority to tell them that the application was received. So then it finds its way into the back end system. So for iPlan, this is where it ends up. And then for APAS, it's into a different system. So the documents find their way automatically into the document management system. And this is an APAS screen. So this is where the information would end up in APAS. And then on the search screen, then you'll be able to search on the application almost immediately. So instead of having to scan paper documents, they appear online automatically. So we have different numbering systems to distinguish between paper applications and electronic ones. And then these ones are examples of documents that were uploaded in Tipperary already. So you can see there, you know, the type is very clear and what they are is very clear. And then after that, the application is processed electronically, so there's no more printing out. Measurements are taken on screen using standard PDF software. All staff have 2 large screens that are handling planning applications. And then when it comes to validating the application, it's a question of validating it in the back-end system, uploading the relevant letter. That generates an email from the CRM to the applicant to inform them that the application was validated, and then the status changes in the dashboard to reflect that. Okay, so a similar process happens for all the different stages in the application, when it's invalid, when the decision is made, and you get an email at every point and the portal is updated. Just a small, you know, looking at further information. So whenever that's required, the local authority will raise a request in their back-end system, and they'll upload the request letter, and then that will cause an email to come out from the CRM to inform the applicant. And then they go online and they upload their information. So it's a much more streamlined process. It can be turned around much more quickly, and you get an email back to say you have uploaded your further information. So then the other bits that we're working on at the moment are submissions. And the idea there is you'll use the same portal to make a submission. So they'll come in, and then there'll be a dashboard like this that will show applications submitted and whether they've been acknowledged or if they've been returned if they're invalid. And then for Part 8, so Part 8 is where the local authority is looking for planning permission from itself. And the concept here is that we'll have a central repository of all Part 8s in the one location, so they can be inquired upon and submissions can be made in regard to them. So that's being developed at the moment, and this is something, it'll look something like this. Okay, so why is it not going ahead for me? Oops, sorry about that. Next. Okay, so the pilot. So the pilot started on December the 21st, and it has been hugely successful. It wasn't hugely advertised in advance because it was a pilot, but up to 40% now of applications received electronically, and surveys that we've done have shown that it is very, very popular with agents. So the rollout then, so at this point in time, this is our rollout plan. We're on week 19, and we're still developing submissions and developing Part 8s and doing some upgrades. But as you can see, by the end of July, we are ready to start the rollout then to all local authorities. So we're going to roll out in waves, and wave 1 is to 7 iPlan local authorities, and that will be done before the end of October. Then wave 2 is to a further 5 before Christmas. And then into next year is when the bulk of the other iPlan local authorities, and then the APAS and Odyssey sites. Now, the Odyssey, I suppose Cork, as far as I know, are going out to tender for a new planning system, so they have to do that work. And there's work to be done on the APAS in the back end to enable online planning across the board. So that's why that will be happening next year. But yeah, that's the plan. So hopefully by this time next year, all local authorities in Ireland will be able to offer online planning. But that's the end. If you have any questions at all, I'll stop sharing.
Okay, thanks very much, Eileen. We'll hold, the questions are in the chat, so we'll hold on to those and we'll gather those up, or they're in the Q&A section there. So I think we'll go straight to you, Teresa Kiely, project lead in Tipperary County Council. So if you could take it from there, please, Teresa.
Okay, no problem. I'm here in Tipperary County Council. I have, I suppose, 20 plus years in working here in the Planning Authority. Is my screen sharing properly there? I'm trying to move on to the next slide.
Not yet, Teresa. Maybe
not
Eileen,
working.
have you stopped sharing? And then Teresa, if you want to start. Yeah, we have you there.
Is that okay?
Yeah, fire ahead.
Yeah, as I said, I've 20 plus years here working in Tipperary County Council in the planning section. The portal went live here on the 21st and we received our first application just before lunch on the 22nd, and the same in Galway. I suppose the planning system itself is hugely complex. There's a whole pile of processes, scenarios, timelines. So the development of an online system was quite complex, and bearing in mind then you also have 3 back-end processing systems and 8 document management systems. Now both ourselves and Galway use the iPlan system for processing our applications. Tipperary uses iDocs for our document management system, and Galway uses Reposit for their document management system. Eileen would have shown you this screen earlier, so I won't go into it again, but it just highlights the complexity of the online end of it. There's no point in going into figures for December, as we were only there for 3 days or thereabouts. But in January, straight away, without any huge pushing or shoving, 35% of our files were e-files, 36% in February, 38% in March, 46% in April. Similar experience in Galway, 31, 36, 44, 45. And I suppose this just goes to show the advantages of the e-planning system for both the agents and the local authorities. The requirement for 6 copies of all that paper is gone with the e-files. You can prepare the application from start to finish at home and submit it. You don't have to hop into the car and drive to the planning office or drive to the post office. And the fact that it is the very same as the paper system, in that it is the same questions, the same drawings, your layout is still 1:500, your drawings 1:200, all that kind of stuff. The agents are already quite familiar with the regulations governing all of that. So it's only a matter of it moving online rather than a whole new system. We know from looking here at the CRM that agents have started applications and submitted them within an hour. Now you can also save your application as a draft. So other agents would start an application and build it up over the 2 weeks and then submit it. It depends on what way people work or whether it's a huge file or not. Once the file is processed and inserted into our document management system, the agent knows immediately. Like if I acknowledge a file now and upload a document, the agent will have an email within 5-10 minutes. The same if a file is invalid or if anything else. And if they are in a position to do so, they can reply immediately if it's an FI request or something like that. We have had applications can be available to view for the public within 1 working day. Here in our back office are things that come in today, go live around 11:30 at night time if people wish to stay up to view them. But anything that's processed today is live on the system tonight. It increases the openness and transparency of the planning process for members of the public and agents alike. The same registration details will allow an agent to apply to any local authority. So we would have some agents that deal with both Tipperary and Galway, and one login, they're able to choose, am I applying to Tipperary, am I applying to Galway? And once it's rolled out, they will be able to do it nationwide, particularly for maybe the bigger firms who work all over the country. The next steps are to enable submissions to be made online, Part 8 to go online. Both will be piloted in Tipperary and Galway before they go out. And then, as Eileen said, it's going to roll out nationally in 3 waves to the other local authorities. And our experience here has been good. We are finding it very good. It has reduced an awful lot of the pressure on staff, because it's easier process stuff electronically than it is the paper copies. Having to stamp 6 of the same pages with the date stamp every day is quite time consuming and whatnot. But like that, I'm happy to answer any questions if there's any in the chat. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Teresa. We're doing great timing here. We're well ahead of ourselves. So thanks very much for that. But I think what we'll do is we'll press on, and if you give a little bit more time, if Sean is ready there to take up his presentation. Are you there, Sean?
Yeah, sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, Sean. If you're ready, if you want to give your presentation,
yeah,
that'd be great. You can stop sharing there, Teresa, if you can. Thanks. Great, thanks. Yeah, we see you now, Sean. Yeah.
Okay.
And go into from beginning. Yeah, lovely.
Now, hopefully the screens are correct, are they?
Yeah, we see you. Yeah, that's great.
Perfect. Now, I suppose my own name is Sean Ryan from Ryan Architectural Solutions. We've, I suppose, been preparing planning applications for, I suppose, 20 years plus. And I suppose when we got word that the system was going on to e-planning and that, we were in talking with the planning authorities in Tipperary County Council and said, look, we would be delighted to put an input into it if we could at all possible from the agent's perspective, just trying to streamline it for everybody. So I suppose this, after using it for the last number of months, this is what we're finding with the application or with the whole system and that. So as everybody knows, the old system of preparing your 6 sets of planning documents, or 10 depending on the application, you're printing everything out, you're putting it all together, and then coordinating it all, and then, like I said, going to the post office or going into the council office themselves and submitting it all to the authorities there. And then obviously then you're waiting whatever, a week or possibly or so for them to go and validate the application and see that it is deemed a valid application. And then obviously your planning process takes on from that. Whereas with I suppose the e-portal system, you're creating PDF folder or PDF files of all your documents, etc., and then being able to upload them from your desk in the office. So we find that's definitely a positive thing going forward. Sorry now. So I suppose from the agent's perspective again, you have to create an account. And again, my apologies, because a lot of the stuff there the girls have already covered it beforehand, but I suppose we'll go into a little bit more detail on each of the parts here. So like I said, from the first part, your first screen page when you go in to create an account, so you have a user email and a password, etc. Once your account created, you obviously then put in the office contact details, etc. And then that helps to populate the application form as you're going forward with your various submissions. So again, that's it, your details of the office, your office details stuff, and like I said, that is automatically infilled on the, I suppose, part 1 of the old planning application form. When you have your account created, you have a dashboard in your system there, and that keeps track of all your planning submissions and stuff like that as you make submissions to the council. Each of them comes up, so it gives you kind of a library of all your applications, etc. So when you go in to create, you basically go in creating a new account, or sorry, new application to fill up this creates your first details on it, and then I suppose you get into naming it or naming the application that you'll be able to follow it afterwards for yourself. So when you're creating it, then you're given a title, an application title for your application, what authority you're sending it to, and then what type of application it may be, whether it be outline, permission, retention, or permission consequential, whichever. So again, so the first part, like I said, you're putting your details onto it. So again, the proposal of the application, what's the application type? So I suppose it's a case of copying and paste from your planning ad to make sure that the wording, everything is corresponding the application side. So you're filling up these first couple of tabs, which effectively is the information that you would need for your first part one of your application form. So from that, that's again there. Sorry, it's populating the information into the application. So again, this the upload page then is where you start uploading all your information on the application. So this is where I suppose you have to create within your office environment. You kind of create a kind of a folder situation that you'll have all your files and folders. So your site plans, your maps, your proposed plans, your survey information, etc. It's a good idea to get into creating kind of, like I said, folders within your office server system, whichever the case may be, that you can easily find those files, etc. What I suppose I found in ourselves is that when you create a project for or a numbering system for your project, within that folder we kind of create everything in that for that particular project and job. So you have your drawing files, your Word documents, your fire search, disable access, whichever, all those information is put into it. And now we're finding what we're doing is we're creating a kind of a PDF folder file, and within that folder system we're creating then your planning submission, etc., to be able to trace all your documents and stuff. So by doing that, then it enables you to upload all this information here. So then as you start uploading the drawings, you see them coming up in your dashboard as each of them are being uploaded. So like I said, your issue slip, your site surveys, your notices, and all those. As you're filling them up, you'll find that as the documents are uploaded, the information on the system will start kind of highlighting that. Have your, like, as you can see here, is a site notice uploaded, the site plans, it's kind of ticking them off as you've uploaded each of them. What we have found is that this is, I suppose, like I said, to getting back to our within our own office environment, when you're creating a PDF folder for that particular project, then we're creating a subfolder for your planning submission, and we're keeping all those documents together there. So we know what was from our side, what we have to upload, etc. It is a good idea from this to kind of create a little your issue slip. So as you're uploading documents, you kind of tick them off, so you know what you're uploading, that you're not forgetting any files, etc. Because depending on the project, if there's quite a number of drawings and documents, you'll be trying to go back and try to remember, did I upload that or not? So I suppose we found printing out the issue slip as we're uploading them and ticking them off, it makes it easy to trace. So then the next part, then when you have all your documents, etc., uploaded, when you go into your final element of it for your payment and stuff like that, you'll fill in the criteria of what classification, etc., the application is for, whether it be class 1 for your planning submission, or a commercial building, whether it be class 4, etc. What we have found on it is that when you go to pay it, pay the information on it, if there's something missing on it, it will highlight. It gives you a kind of a warning. So just go back one. If you see it on it there, it's coming up as a red notice that something has been missed. So when you go back on it, like I said, it highlights what's been left out. And when you go back then and tick it appropriately, whether it has or hasn't, it'll let you then go on to the next part of it. So now this part of it, from the payment element of it, that's where I suppose an officer or whatever has to decide whether they're going to pay the application fee on behalf of the client, or whether you actually get the client in with you to make the submission, because the payment details comes off of a credit card. So whether the office is paying that and you appropriately charge the client later on, or whether you get the client to come in and pay it with that they pay it for on their behalf, with, etc. So that's something just for an office to think about in relation to all that. Once the application is completed and stuff, we found that the application is I suppose submitted, you get an email confirmation first that the application has been acknowledged as a submission. Later on, then obviously within a day or so, that you get another confirmation email that the application is valid or not, whichever. But again, another thing we have found that's quite helpful within the office environment element of it, like we use Microsoft Office, so we created a folder within our email system. And I suppose then the beauty with the likes of Microsoft, you can create folders and rules, etc. So what we've done on it is that any application, etc., that's coming from that dedicated email, we can move every email into that one folder. So it keeps a track from the office point that you have a record of everything coming in. And this email then this email or portal or whatever is used going forward for every application. So your validations, your further information, your application grants, etc. and whatnot. Hopefully you get a lot of application grants, but that's what we find is everything goes into that one folder. So it's a good way of tracking everything for you. So it does keep a good side. If offices are operating the ISO systems and stuff, it's a good way of keeping a track of all those. That's kind of my end of it there. I know we've kind of done about 4 or 5 minutes a bit early on it, but that's what we found anyway at the moment with it. I'll leave it to questions and answers there at the later on for anybody else. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Sean. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the speakers. We've a good bit of time for some questions. So I thought I'd take the chair's prerogative with a couple of my own first, and then I'm going to hand over to Alan Poor, who's a colleague of mine here. Alan has a few questions. He chaired the questions and answers, and then we'll wrap up probably in good time for 2 o'clock. But I suppose the first question I'm going to maybe, if I can ask you, Sean, it's a more general question. Just the effect that this will have. You're obviously active, in preparing proposals and submitting planning applications.
Yes.
And how do you see this affecting your business? And I mean that in a more general sense, in terms of, say, costs or efficiency, or that. Are we talking about a positive effect, reduction in costs? Yeah,
absolutely positive insofar as, I suppose, you're number one, you're cutting down on your printing costs. I suppose can often be a big charge for offices and that. But it's more from an efficiency perspective, insofar as you're preparing your plans, etc. and whatnot. We're finding that you're setting up systems and whatnot for it, that you're printing your files in PDF, etc., and then you're saving into a folder. So from that point of view, you're saving a lot of time and going printing and then folding them up and then preparing them into a post and stuff. So there's quite a bit of a saving there, in fairness. But also then from point of view of once the application is uploaded, you're getting the application validated a lot quicker in the planning office. So like I said, when your plans are prepared, they're uploaded. What often you find at times is if you're being engaged by a client to assess an application for a submission that's gone on the site somewhere, you're going to have to go and either visit the council offices or wait maybe a week or possibly 2 weeks before the drawings are scanned within the planning authorities and uploaded for public viewing. So it cuts down on your time that you have to assess, to look at an application for a client, etc. So the beauty with this system, we find that once the application is submitted within the day, the drawings and everything are all live. So you're able to kind of view an application, whether it be for your own application or for an assessment of a submission that was done on a site for a client, where maybe the clients come and ask you, could you have a look at this? I'm concerned about a few items that I'm concerned the planning application has gone into me next door. What effect is that going to have on my house, or etc. So from from the agent's perspective, it's easy to be able to go and view those documents quite quickly instead of having to wait and see, have they been uploaded? Are they live yet? And if they're not, then you might have to go and travel to the planning authorities to view the file. So that's where I'm finding that there is, I suppose, efficiencies and stuff with that.
Okay, so you're welcoming it broadly anyway, Sean.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I suppose we're going to a kind of an electronic or a digital environment. So I suppose I see it as the next progression.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. I have another one there. I was going to ask Teresa, a question there, if you don't mind, because I suppose you've rolled out the project in Tipperary, and I suppose this is looking at maybe the other side of the other users. And I know maybe you may not have had done formal questionnaires or any sort of survey or whatever, but how is the process going down with, say, public and communities? And also, I suppose, from a planner's point of view, how is it going? How is it working from the perspective, do you think, of the planners?
Well, from the planner's point of view, with the advent of COVID, a lot of our planners were forced to work from home, for want of a better way of putting it. So they were used to looking at things on the screen rather than paper copies. That was the way we went when COVID came in. So it wasn't a major change for them. Like, the biggest change internally would be when you are validating or checking stuff. Before, we would have had our little scale rulers, and now we're doing it on the computer. And that is the biggest change internally here in the office. That was from the planners. From the public, like, the public are getting to see stuff way quicker. What impact has it had on the public? It has made them impatient with the paper files if they're not getting up there fast enough. How come I can see this one and I can't see the other one? But that's minor, really.
Yeah. So a broad welcome, and people not getting nostalgic for the old days of paper.
Definitely not. No,
yeah.
No.
Okay.
No. Like, the feedback every place has generally been positive. Like, there has been little hiccups and whatnot, but they have been resolved fairly quickly. So things haven't escalated. Yeah.
Okay, that's great, Teresa. And my last question, of course, is for Eileen. And really, this one is more about general awareness of all users of the system, not necessarily within local authorities or whatever, but I'm talking about a campaign or a general awareness program, because you are going on waves now to roll this out. I'm just wondering if you have anything planned in that regard, or would that be wise?
Well, when we have, got the first couple of sites done in wave one, I think we're going to have a coordinated campaign with ourselves and possibly the department, who are funding it, to promote the site and to make, the public in general more aware of it. But I suppose, we still have to test and pilot the next two modules. We'll get that done, and then we'll concentrate on making people more aware of it at that point. Yeah.
Thanks, Eileen. I'm going to hand over to Alan now.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, everyone. I suppose this is just another example of a digital transformation program, and I'd just like to thank Eileen and Teresa and Sean for their contribution. So I also have one question for each of you, if I may. Eileen, the government have many priorities. By way of an example, climate action. Is there a bigger picture here? I know we're fixing the planning application process, but is there can you see a project down the line where we're looking at developing maybe a shared data resource for planning and the places that we live in? In other words, the geospatial information as well.
Yeah, I'd say this is just, the start of a process that will keep going and going. I mean, we have a portal, we have different back-end systems. I'd say in the future, you'll move more closely towards having, maybe a more integrated system. Now, whether that would be centralized or whether it would still, I'm sure it would probably still be locally, managed and so on. But that, I think that's where we're heading. And our system, it's not really that closely integrated with Geo directly from the point of view of submitting the application. So maybe in the future that it would become more Geo enabled. And I think we're just at the start of a process that will keep moving and moving. There'll be things like BIM and so on coming down the road. So I think there's a bright future ahead for online planning.
That's great, Eileen. Thank you. And Teresa, you obviously are dealing with the public, the cold faces, so to speak. Is there a plan to stop the submission of paper applications and to have it mandatory that all applications should be digital?
No, there's not. And that would be up to the department. That would require legislative change to force online applications. And I don't think that there is an appetite to force people down that road.
No.
But it's outside of the local authority's control. That's a legislative decision.
But it's pretty impressive nonetheless, the figures you have, is it not? That's
Well, it is like with no discount on the fees or anything like that. Like the agents have taken it on board and ran with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, alongside digitizing the planning application process, is there a way of speeding up the whole thing so that, I mean, we all hear about obviously judicial reviews and things like that can completely stop projects and so on. And we're a very open system, but you know, think about our housing crisis for a minute. We need lots of housing in Ireland. Is there a mechanism whereby this can be coupled in with a more rapid response?
Like it's like everything. Like the strategic housing stuff was there, and now that's gone into LRD. Like there's set timeframes there for that, but there is the world of applications granted that are not being commenced and not being built for many very, very valid reasons.
Yeah.
And things can get delayed and held up in the planning system. But what I can say about the e-files is our overall length of time from an application coming in to a decision going out has decreased since we got in e-files, because the files are getting to the planners quicker, the public can see them quicker, and we're getting stuff out quicker. But like, we can't do anything on a file till 5 weeks have passed. Then we have between 5 and 8 weeks to make our decision or look for FI. Like, that's 3 weeks. You're not going to reduce that by a whole pile anywhere. No, like no. It's not a big time frame to be playing around with. But as I said, things are speeding up. Like, I could look for FI today. If I do it now, I could have the answer in before I go home this evening. You know, there's no time lost. The same with an invalid file. They can be turned around very fast because the agent knows faster. We can get it out to them faster. And if they are in a position to do something there and then, they have done.
Yeah, very good. And thank you, Teresa. And Sean, you talked a lot about integration. You know, you talked about, you know, trying to get everything in one place if you can. I mean, you're a consultant designer. You're creating design information. You're looking for a permit for that, a permission. Can you see a way, a future whereby, you know, I know Eileen touched on it, but that maybe there could be some way of submitting a model, a data model to a local authority that they could drop in to a virtual digital environment to see its impact and to see its impact on the streetscape.
Yeah, I suppose in conjunction with with preparing planning applications, we have invested in BIM too. So we are trying to go forward in this digital environment. So by creating digital models and stuff, it's helpful from our perspective and with the client's point of view that you can show them a development in its 3D digital environment. I suppose that would also help the planners going forward. That I know we have the old process of your 2D set of plans, etc. But I do find at times like a picture tells 1,000 words. So it often, I suppose, can see it at times where we've submitted an application to the council and they come back looking for maybe photovoltaics of a development or a house or whichever. I think by, like you're saying, taking it that one step further and maybe creating a model or submitting a model to them that they can see, they get a better take on a building. And I suppose be able to make a more informed decision on an application, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm not sure if there's any questions from the floor. I know Teresa was very efficient during the period answering all the questions as they came in double quick time. And you must be an extremely efficient person, I think, at your job as well. So I'm not sure if there's any questions, Conor, from the floor. If anyone wanted to ask a question now that you're with us, you can ask away, or we can move on and close the meeting out.
Okay, and I think, Alan, that was very efficient, you know, well done to everybody. I think a couple of things that probably came out there today is that there's a great appreciation of the need for the system, not just the system itself, but the consistency of a system across all local authorities, and a system that can be integrated. So, I mean, I think it's something certainly from the perspective of the Irish Planning Institute that we've been sort of, I suppose, pushing for a number of years now, but we're delighted to see it actually coming to fruition. I think the second thing, of course, to say is that it is the start of digitalization. It's development management. There are other aspects of the planning system as well, and plan making. Obviously, there's a platform there, but there's all sorts of areas of data that can be integrated, and all sorts of information that could, in the future, could be integrated into a platform that could actually be used by everybody. In particular, of course, I mean, from the planner's perspective, having data and information available and usable is very, very important, and it will improve decision making. But I think also out there in communities, and having access to documents and participating in the planning system is extremely important. And Alan was looking at ways to maybe reduce timelines. And I think Teresa gave the perfect response there that, look, we can't whittle that much more out of a planning process while retaining the aspects of participation and consultation that are necessary. So, when an application comes in, various technical, environmental, other inputs have to come into that process. It's not sitting just on a planner's desk. There's a hell of a lot of inputs that come in. And then there's a participation that's really, really important and a critical part of our planning process. And I think recently, we've had SHD, which was so-called fast-track process, and it had certain, obviously, benefits, etc. But what was clearly there was a deficit in critical areas of public participation. And I'm absolutely convinced that the net result of that was to actually take the planning system and put it into the judicial system. And of course, you need to remember as well that judicial review isn't something that's attached to planning itself, but it's a process that is added on top of any regulatory system. So often planning is being given a bad name because of judicial review. Some of that has been very beneficial, has clarified what's happened in planning. But I think the whole benefit here of the digital, if I have to say that, and Sean and Teresa in particular are sort of emphasizing this, is that it's important to get that information out there, get it out early, make it very transparent, and make sure that those discussions are actually held in the planning process and not discussions that are forced down into the judicial process. So I think it's got huge potential there. And I suppose the last thing I would say, of course, is that actually when we talk about our planning system, it's one of the most open systems, whether we like it or not, in the entire regulatory framework in Ireland. We have third-party appeal, and even before digitalization, people have come to me often amazed that you can see all of this information, planners' reports, internal reports, letters to file, all sorts of things on a planning application. Try and look at another system, the health system, education, others, and see if you've got that sort of transparency. So I would just say that we have to also understand that the system that we have has some benefits. And maybe one other point is when we talk about the speed of development management in Ireland, it actually is a very rapid process in its core in Ireland compared to actually the UK. Applications can fester for months and for years, and continental Europe in many cases. And so it's actually a fairly efficient process in terms of timelines. Where we have obviously looking at things is the appeal process now and shaping up more consistency on timelines there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Alan, did you want to come in?
Yeah. Just to wrap up, just to say thank you. I know Gavin and Trevor had a few questions that Eileen dealt with there, so thanks very much. And I think Gavin mentioned about the Jersey exemplar. There's a lot of innovation going on in Scotland. Many of you will know. Singapore as well. every jurisdiction is on a different, I suppose, digital journey. And I just wanted to mention to you before we wrap up a few things. Before I do, many of you may not know the Alliance very well. If you just go back to the previous slide, Elenia, please. The CETA are involved in the Build Digital project, which is the first and largest single investment by the Irish government in the construction sector. The whole idea is to try and transform the sector. And if you just look at the 5 pillars in that: leadership and cultural change, standards, education, procurement, and sustainability, you could apply all of those pillars to the planning system. So it shows that, you know, the LGMA are taking a leadership role, you know, the county council that Teresa works in, you know, Sean, all these people are taking a leadership role, but we need standards. We need to train people, enable them to use digital. We need to procure in a more dynamic and a more agile way, and we need to plan for a decarbonized future. So maybe the future of planning is that, you know, they're going to be measuring the carbon footprint. I heard recently in London, Marks and Spencer's flagship project in Oxford Street was refused planning because of the impact it would have in the environment. So they wanted the building to be kept and retrofitted and not demolished and torn down and rebuilt by something new and shiny. So anyway, interesting debate today. I just wanted to mention to you about our next event that the Alliance is hosting on the 26th of May. And this is about time, cost, and quality. So we have this tech trend series. It's great to engage, by the way, with IPI, Irish Planning Institute, the community of IPI. You're most welcome to come and join us for other events. But what we're looking at here is a shift in what's happening in construction. It's actually a bit of a misnomer, cost, time, and quality. The move today is value, decarbonization, and procurement reform. They're the big things now in construction. And this idea that we're focusing just on the construction cost is only a part of the whole life cycle cost and impact of the project. So join us on the 26th of May. You'll learn more about that. And may I also invite you to see the Tech Live, and that will bring us on to the next slide, please. And I mentioned earlier on, just before we finish, that, you know, one thing about the Alliance is that it's multidisciplinary. It's public and private. It's academic, it's industrial, and it's technology companies coming together, all paying, you know, quite a reasonable subscription. We don't charge that huge subscriptions, but we'd have some of the largest companies down to some of the smallest one-person company. But the one thing we did this year for CETA Tech Live is we went out to industry and we asked them to identify what the key challenges were. And these were the challenges they identified: resource scarcity and increased costs, procurement reform, which includes planning, decarbonization. And of course, what the common denominator is for all of that is collaboration and the need for us to work together for a different, more agile, greener, leaner, smarter industry. So that's what we're about. So if you're about on the 17th of June, why don't you come up to the Gibson to meet us, where we'll be in person on day 3. Now, day 1 and day 2 is online. And we have world-class speakers from all across the world, a lot of Irish presenters, but because we're conscious of our carbon footprint, all our international speakers are going to be delivering online. So day 1, day 2 online. But day 3, you'll hear a lot more about that value, carbon, safety, or procurement reform issue that I spoke about earlier on. So if you want to join us and meet us on the 17th of June, we'd be delighted to have you. And just thank you so much to our speakers. And to you, Conor, for your excellent chairmanship this today. And to Eileen and Teresa and Sean, you're doing a great job. And we'd love to have more engagement with IPI. You know, CETA started in DIT. It spun out in 2008, and it's the largest multidisciplinary network in the country. So we'd love to have IPI involved. So listen, good health to all of you. Have a great day, and thanks so much for all your time. And thanks to the CETA back team. You don't see them, but they're always there. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
That's a wrap.
Bye.